And we're live. Guys, welcome to another Funky Marketing podcast episode. Today is the episode where we're going to talk about how to make your company demand and talent magnet of the future and build a competitive advantage along the way. So a lot of social selling, employee advocacy, and I have the right guest for that. My guest today is Steve Watt, Director of Marketing Insights at Seismic. He's a huge advocate, as you can imagine, for buyer-centric social selling, client-centric employee advocacy. Steve, welcome to the show, and let's dive in.
Well, thanks for having me on, Neman. Yeah, I'm glad we upgraded our relationship, right? We've been LinkedIn friends for quite a long time now. We engage with each other's posts. We learn from each other. We support each other. And we have done so for several years now. This is the first time we've actually spoken. So thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I mean, podcasts are a great, tool for that, as I like to say it. I always say was unable to enter the US market until I started the podcast, right? First, because I was coming from Serbia, people here knew me, but outside of it, not that much. So I first say, okay, can I talk about B2B marketing? Yes. So I invited people to see if they have the same experience or do their experiences match. Then, when I saw, okay, I have more experience than some of them, then I saw we can discuss about things. So when we discussed, I can share what I know. So they recommend me to somebody and then it goes, because usually, you cannot enter the US market coming from Europe if you didn't work with the US companies from that industry on their niche. And that was kind of the hard stuff, so I found a way around it. And LinkedIn was the huge implicator of that. You are one of the people that I follow, as a senior leader who are talking about this stuff. When I work with companies, I usually don't see people who are like senior leaders talk about this stuff and understand how LinkedIn actually works today. So I'm happy to dive into all this, explain and give some insights to the people of how did LinkedIn actually change, because it changed a lot even during the last couple of months, and not if you look at a couple of years.
Yeah, that you're exactly right, Neman. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are stuck in an old mindset about what LinkedIn was when they first heard about it or when they first joined. And for some people, I mean, LinkedIn's 20 years old now.
Yeah.
May of 2003. So we are now, won't be too long until we're coming up on 21 years of LinkedIn. And a lot of people have had a profile for most of those years. I joined LinkedIn in 2006. So I've been there 17 years and it is entirely different. But I mean, even if you joined LinkedIn 3 or 4 years ago, it's different today than it was when you joined. But human beings tend to get locked in mindsets, and they tend to get locked in the first thing they learned. So for many of us, whenever we join LinkedIn, whatever we thought it was that day, we think it still is. And that is the root of so many problems and so many missed opportunities. Because as you said, it really is changing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, look, when I think about selling on LinkedIn and I look back at started doing it in 2015, I think at the time what they told me at the time, because I was doing marketing and this was the first time that I took over sales, because I was the GM and somebody needs to take over because we didn't have enough clients coming from referrals, so we didn't to actually start selling. And we had a tool at the time which was kind of, we were working mostly with automotive companies. We type in the position, the experience, the demographics, and basically the tool visits the profiles one by one, stays for 20 seconds, and then goes away. It was a tool that took over, the whole power of the laptop. So I needed to turn it on at night while I was sleeping. So in the morning, if I see that people were coming to my profile as the tool was visiting them as I did, then I send them a message and we kind of connect and start talking. But the thing was that the first time that I sold our services was when I used the insights that I got from Twitter, which was like the guy liked fishing. I had no idea about fishing, but I found him on Twitter and I saw that. And if we look at LinkedIn today, we can find out all those information on Twitter or on LinkedIn as well, right? People talk more about who they are, what do they like outside of the work. And having all that in mind, it's, if you ask me, much easier to kind of connect if you know how to.
Yes, but I'll add a critical piece to that is, who are you? It's one thing to learn about who are they, but who are you, and why should they care? And I think that is a missing element for a lot of people. A lot of people, their LinkedIn profile is just their CV, their resume. It's just a boring list of all the places that they used to work. It's about getting them their next job. Instead of about helping them be successful in the job they have today. So someone does check out your LinkedIn profile and there's nothing there for me. Like, I don't really care where this guy used to work. I don't really care where he went to school. Like, whatever. Who is this guy? He's no one to me. I don't care. And it's such a foundational thing to start to upgrade your profile. And there's a lot more we'll talk about. But I mean, the first thing you got to do is make your profile buyer-centric, client-centric. Explain who you are, who your firm is, who you serve, why it matters, what kind of outcomes you help your clients achieve, and to do all of that in an authentic human voice. So you don't sound like a resume or a CV, and you don't sound like a advertising brochure. You don't sound like a press release. You sound like a real human being. And now I might actually want to talk to you. And like, even something as basic as that. I mean, I look at a lot of people's LinkedIn profiles, and I don't know. I'd say probably less than 10% have what I consider to be a authentically human, client-centric LinkedIn profile. I'd say at least 90% have an old boring resume. And that comes back to mindsets, like I said at the outset. Because when they joined LinkedIn, they were told to upload your resume, upload your CV. LinkedIn is a place for jobs. So that's what they did. And they stopped thinking, and they're stuck there. So yes, you can learn a lot about them. That's half of it, but they can learn a lot about you. And that's the other half.
Exactly, if you allow them, right? I always say somebody is always watching. It all depends on what you're gonna share, if you're gonna share, because they cannot act accordingly if you don't deliver them, the right things to look for.
Yeah.
And that's essential. That part that we have on LinkedIn profile called About. We have that page on the website also called About Us, right? But it's actually about them. And a lot of people don't understand it. That's your second sales page on a website and the first one on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, and it's a missing section on a lot of people. A lot of people don't have the about section at all on LinkedIn because it's not a default section. If you just go through the motions of a basic LinkedIn, you don't even have an about section. And then those that do add it, most of them just, maybe they copy paste some marketing content, or they talk. Again, the resume mindset comes into play with that third person voice, right? Steve is a marketer, like, well, everyone knows that I wrote my own profile. Why am I using this old fashioned voice of like, Steve is this and he does that, like pretending like someone else wrote it about me? No, I wrote it. I'm going to write it the way I speak. I'm going to say, I do this. I am excited about this. My team and I focus on this. This is who we serve. I'm going to make it human voice. And I mean, so yeah, just simple things like adding that about section. And sometimes people say, I don't know what to say, so I don't say anything. I say, well, if you met your most important customer or your most important prospect, if you met them face to face right now, what would you say to them? We'll write that, because just writing that is a lot better than writing nothing or having like a rundown of all the places you used to work.
Exactly. I mean, let me give an example. We are just starting with a company, helping them with LinkedIn, especially with selling part, because they are semi-active, let's call it like that, but they say we don't convert. So okay, I look at them, nothing much to stand out, and I know them, so there are a lot of things that they are not sharing, those unique stuff that they can emphasize in their about section. And I told them, do you have like the stuff about who we are targeting, your ICP, jobs to be done, all those things. And they say yes. So when I look at the document, like I would just post that every
Yeah.
day, right? They have it all. They know it all. Not many companies have that data that I saw. And I'm like, why am I not seeing that thing that you talk about? Because you know who you are selling to, and you are not talking about it. Why? Usually, one additional thing that I want to say, so we can finish that part about the profile, about section. It's much harder to be somebody else. You know, it's easy to be yourself, but usually people are like, this guy, they say he like cats. This I don't know, lady, she says she's from Portland, she likes Damian Lillard. I don't know, somebody else, but what do you like? You don't need to say you like cats or dogs. Say maybe you like riding bicycle, hiking, whatever it is. You have probably something you're passionate about outside of work. If not, just say, like, I love my job, this is what I do, I love talking about it, reach out to me, let's talk more.
Yeah. And I like to make sure that there's not a disconnect between the way I present myself on LinkedIn and the way I present myself when we get on a call or where we meet face to face. Some people, they present themselves, they have a very formal photograph of them in a suit and a tie, and they're looking very stern, and it's very formal writing. And then you meet them and they're friendly and warm, and you think, like, there's a real disconnect there, right? I say write the way you speak, but also present yourself on LinkedIn in a way that, like I said right at the beginning, I said, I'm glad we upgraded our relationship from LinkedIn friends to now like podcast friends and, digital call friends. There's no disconnect from like, you are what I expected you to be. The way you speak, the way you act, the friendliness and the warmth that you bring, I already knew that, because that's the way you present yourself on LinkedIn. So it was seamless. And I hope that you have the same experience with me. It's like, oh, I already felt like I knew this guy, instead of like, who is this now? This is someone completely new. You want to have a seamless presence across LinkedIn, and then the way you present yourself digitally, and then the way you present, if we were to meet face to face, it would just be a continuation of that seamless relationship. And that's not going to happen if you present yourself in really formal ways or really inadequate ways on LinkedIn. So yeah, so much. And that's not just about the profile. Like, that's about what you post. It's about how you engage with others. Like I always talk about LinkedIn as basically three things you got to do. It's your profile, number one. It's what you choose to post, number two. And then number three is how you engage with other people through comments and supporting others. And you get those three things right, and it just accelerates everything you do from a sales perspective, marketing, talent acquisition, thought leadership, and everything else.
Yeah, you reminded me of an example, and I want to share it because I want people to understand how important it is what you said firstly. Then we go to the second part. But having a good picture on LinkedIn represents who you are and the importance of it. Like, I work with a company that told me an example. They are doing outsourcing work. So a lot of tech guys, huge corporation they are working with, and they recommend them their best people. So they had the person, a lady. I'm emphasizing a lady because she's not a girl. And she's their biggest expert when it comes to the project management, right? The most experienced one. And they say, this is our expert. She has a lot of experience with companies like yours, 10 plus years of experience. Check it out. And they linked her LinkedIn profile. So the company checked her LinkedIn profile, and she has a photo from her high school when she was a girl, right? Unprofessional, totally photo, which is, it doesn't matter. Like, if you are young, you are just young. It was unprofessional in a way. And they told them, no, this is not who we are working with. I'm sorry, but no, somebody who represents like this, we don't want to work with her. Give us, somebody else.
all that experience, all that education, all that she learned, all gone because
Exactly.
humans make quick judgments.
Yeah, but tell me one thing. You said that you have kind of like three things that you look when it comes to LinkedIn, and I want to ask you one first, which is how do we determine the balance between the personal and the professional things that we are sharing? I see a lot of people asking about that because I would like to share something when it comes to personal, but I don't want to share much. But then on the other hand, if I talk only personal, is it becoming like Facebook or Instagram or something else?
Yeah.
Where's the balance?
Yeah, I don't think there's one right answer. I think you have to be. I keep two things in mind. You have to be true to yourself, and you have to be appropriate for the audience that you want to reach. And so true to yourself means how do you want to present yourself? And so for me, for instance, I don't talk about my kids. I don't do selfies. I don't do stuff like that on LinkedIn. I talk about business, but I talk about it in an authentically human way. I'm not out there just promoting my employer. I'm not out there, just cheerleading my products and services. I'm out there authentically challenging old ways of thinking and trying to bring new approaches and new mindsets. And I'm sharing learnings and perspectives and all this kind of stuff. So I stay mostly within a business lane, but I do it in a really human way. Now, I sometimes go outside of that business lane. I'll talk a little bit about Formula One racing. I'm a big fan of Formula One, other things like that. But that's probably 10% of what I do. But that's not the only way to do it. That's what works for me. Other people are much more personal. They talk about their kids. They talk, they'll share photos of the food they cooked on the weekend or of their travels. That's okay. If that's what they want to do. There's, no one should be the gatekeeper for LinkedIn. No one should say, "Oh, that's not right. You're too personal or whatever." What feels right to me is the first half of it. But then the other half of it is what's going to be well received by the audience that I hope to engage, because I am building my reputation. I'm building relationships. I'm hoping to build trust within industries that I sell into or I serve, whatever it may be. Well, what are their expectations? If your intended audience are very conservative financial services people, bankers and big global banks and stuff like that, you're probably going to present yourself a lot differently than if you sell into owners of marketing agencies and owners of advertising agencies and creative professionals and entrepreneurs, right? So the way you present yourself is really important, and it has to work for you, and it also has to work for them. And I think it also needs to be somewhat consistent. And that doesn't mean just be boring and repetitive. But if you are all over the map, where one month you're all super personal and the next month you're all super business, I think you're going to confuse people. So I do recommend that you give some real thought to how do I want to appear and who do I want to reach, and then figure out kind of the lane you're going to swim within, and then be interesting within that lane. So, I stay, as I said, in this human approach to business, and I know the topics that I talk about and I know the perspectives I bring, but I mix it up. Sometimes I take a really serious approach and it's like a long, serious post with real learnings in it. Other times it's more like I posted today something that was more of a funny take on it. I try to mix it up so that people don't think I'm just all like, nobody wants to listen to someone who just is always 100% serious. But at the same time, you don't want someone who's just always joking and always having fun. You kind of don't take them seriously. So figure out who you are, figure out who your audience is, figure out what's at the heart of what you want to deliver, and then figure out how to be interesting and do it in different ways. So back to your question, how personal should I be? That's the answer. it's not one size fits all.
I totally agree. And you share different perspectives on those things. I want to ask you something that I posted this morning, which is kind of interesting because when I work with CEOs, senior leaders who are like 20, 30 years in the industry, and I ask them, who do you look up after when it comes to LinkedIn? Who are the people that you admire, that you go for? And then they name some people who are like CEOs of the corporations, leaders who maybe were active back in the days on the events in a different way. Now it's LinkedIn. They didn't adapt that much. They know that they need to be present on LinkedIn, but it's just presence. And they have like Forbes articles. They are sharing like quarterly reports, or maybe resharing from the pages. And I figure out that it's mostly the reason why they are not more active is because they don't see the relationship with the revenue and how it affects those things. So I wanted to ask you first, how did you realize that you need to do and behave the way you do on LinkedIn? And then maybe, how we can affect other leaders to do the same.
Yeah, it's funny. We said at the beginning, LinkedIn's changed a lot, and we can talk specifically if you'd like about how it's changed. But um, I've been there a long time, as I said. I used to work there. I worked at LinkedIn from 2011 to 2014. I wasn't actively posting on LinkedIn back then. Nobody was. It was like company pages and job postings and press releases, and so I didn't see it yet at that point. Where I really started to see the clear connection between business growth and LinkedIn presence was for several years. I was a self-employed marketing consultant and fractional marketing leader, and I worked with a lot of different companies. And I never made a sales, like I never made a cold call. I never sent a prospecting email, not even one. I never spent a penny on advertising, not even one. I grew my business entirely on LinkedIn, and it was the early days of account-based marketing. It was really, there were this change happening where marketers were recognizing or beginning to recognize the failures of conventional big funnel marketing. And they were looking for something different. And I had learned a lot about account based marketing. I had self educated on it through resources out there. Then I'd gone ahead and built a successful account based marketing practice in a company. And people started to see me as a emerging expert in the space. And when I went out on my own, I started actively talking about that on LinkedIn, just giving it away. I wasn't saying, my posts weren't, here's why you should hire me. My posts were, here's what I'm learning. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't work. Here's what's changing. Here's how you get started. And I was just giving it away. And people started coming to me. The right people started coming to me. And the typical message I would receive is like, hey, I've been reading your posts. You seem to be further along in this journey than we are. Can we talk? And we'd get on a call, or if they were local, we'd meet at a coffee shop and we'd talk. And again, I'd give it away, and then at the end of, maybe, one out of every three of those conversations ended with them saying, how do I get more of you? And I said, well, you pay me, you hire me, I'll come in, I'll do this for you. And that's how I got all my clients. That really opened my eyes to the potential when you, as Perry Hedrick, who's great at this stuff, he's a PR guy in the US, and he coined the phrase to ungate your mind, right? We talk about ungating content. Well, Perry says we need to ungate our minds. And I completely agree. When I ungated my mind and started giving it away, people say, oh, but if you give away all your best stuff, then why would anyone hire you? It's like, no, it's the exact opposite. When you give it away, people recognize your experience. They recognize your expertise. They recognize your passion, and they want more of you, and they're willing to pay for it. So, and that's true not only for an entrepreneur or a small firm. That can be true in a giant global firm as well. I mean, you look at these huge tech companies and they're all out there spending huge amounts of money on marketing, just massive amounts of marketing, but their people are completely absent on LinkedIn. Think about the power of hundreds of people from any one of those firms regularly showing up on LinkedIn and giving it away. Here's what we're learning. Here's the biggest challenges our customers face. Here's the biggest misconceptions they have. Here's the most common questions. Here's the most common objections. Just if they ungated their minds, they would become absolute magnets for firms and individuals who are trying to solve those problems. And then I'd look, okay, there's 4 big companies in that space, and 3 of them run big corporate marketing campaigns. But one of them, everywhere I look, I see their people, and their people seem amazing. Well, who do you think I'm going to call? And so, to answer your question, that's how I connected it. But I think how the rest of us need to connect it is to think about the way we buy. I'll challenge leaders of B2B firms who say, oh no, I don't want my people doing social. No, they need to be on the phone. They need to be email. That's how you do sales. And I'll say, tell me about the last B2B product or service that you bought. And I'll dig into that. And usually it turns out that the last product or service that they were a champion or an active buyer for did not come because they responded to a cold call, did not come because they answered from a cadence of prospecting emails. It came from a recommendation, from a peer, from a trusted peer. It came from someone they met or saw speak at a conference, someone who was on a podcast, someone they read their book, someone they found on social, someone who was part of a community. And there's so many of these emerging sales and marketing and leadership communities. That's how they themselves buy. But then they turn around and tell their company to ignore that. And oh no, don't waste your time on social. Don't waste your time in communities. Don't waste your time doing this and that other thing. I want you on the phone and I want you on the email. And there's this disconnect between the way they buy and the way they tell their company to sell. And I find that when you start to dig into that, that's where you can start to change those mindsets. And it doesn't happen easily and it doesn't happen immediately, but you can start to turn on a light and go like, oh yeah, I guess reputation matters a lot. I guess relationships matter. I guess referrals matter. I guess getting into the consideration set. When it's another thing I say often is when you're really good on social, you get into the consideration set such that any company that is going to buy a particular category of product or service, you gotta be in the top like 3 or 4 that are on their minds, or else you're nowhere. Your win rate will be 0 if you're not even in their consideration set. You're not going to necessarily win that business on social, but you can win your way into the consideration set. And now at least you have a chance. And I think it's conversations like this that you can start to connect the dots and break down the notion that social selling needs to be immediate and it needs to be transactional. Like, well, if I send 100 connection requests and, I'll get 10 meetings and 3 opportunities and 1 sale. No, we need to cast aside that old mindset. Instead say, what if I build my reputation and my company's reputation with thousands of people and 95% of them are not in a buying motion today. And that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm wasting my time because I'm building reputation, I'm building trust, I'm teaching the world or the industry or the subcategory, whatever my focus is, I'm teaching them to think a little bit differently and I'm earning my way into their consideration set. And that is going to pay off in far more than leads. It's going to absolutely accelerate sales cycles, grow deal sizes, increase win rates. These are the kinds of conversations that we have to get through to someone who's spent the last 20 years wanting everything to be very transactional and mathematical, because that's not the way social selling works at its best.
Yeah. Well, guys, I hope you were listening. I didn't want to stop you. You were on the roll and you said a lot from how we should look at what we do, how do we engage, connect with people, then the insights underneath that, and it is how people actually buy. How do we buy? How do we spend our time? Right, we spend more time on social than we actually spend doing our job. That's just the reality of it. Then we have people we trust, we like inside the communities, on social, on the events, leaders that we look for and that we look up to, that we engage with. And it's not what people say it works like, it's the volume game, as they say. Send as many messages as possible and you'll convert something. You eventually will, but how much will it cost you? You can do it via advertising or just hire somebody to do it for you, but how much is going to cost you? You still need to invest time to actually do it. And if you invest time and build a little bit of, how do we call it, demand awareness, brand, even outreach will be much easier. People will know who is reaching out to you, and they will open the email or answer the call, whatever it is.
That's a really important point you just made there, Nemanja. People tend to think in very siloed ways. It's like, well, what's my email response rate? What's my, telephone success? What's my social? And they think that things happen within these distinct lanes, but they don't. When, as you just said, and it's really bears repeating, if you build a really strong reputation on social, it's not only going to pay off in people reaching out to you on LinkedIn. People will be more likely to pick up the phone when you call. They'll be more likely to read and respond to your email and less likely to mark it as spam. They'll be more likely to want to talk to you at a conference. I'm sure you experience this, and I do. Sometimes I walk into a conference and a complete stranger is like, "Hey, Steve, right? Oh, wow. So great to meet you. Yeah, I've been," and that comes back to those photos on LinkedIn and everything, So, if I walk into a conference and someone is happy to meet me and we have a conversation and that leads to business, well, people who want direct attribution for everything are going to say, well, that sale was made at the conference. So, well, but I never would have talked to that guy if I hadn't built my reputation on LinkedIn. So yes, building your reputation and your network and building that trust at scale pays off across all these other channels as well. And I would rather look at it holistically. I would rather say, am I successful? Is my company successful? Are we growing? Are we building high intent inbound demand? And are we having high win rates and successful sales cycles? I'd rather look at it holistically rather than say, well, I didn't get enough leads on LinkedIn, so obviously that was a waste.
Yeah, totally true. I mean, everything that you said, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, okay, I've been through that journey, right? So I can relate. I mean, when I started Funky Marketing in 2020, I just, as you say, I engaged my mind. I got out of the marketing groups here on the Balkans, and I just follow 2 or 3 people that are going in the same direction, are already there, to kind of get a different perspective, and I share that. Then I close clients and I share the results. I share the way we work, the processes, everything, and we close 47 deals in a year, all over LinkedIn, all inbound. In a year and a half, it was 60 something deals.
Wow.
So still a lot. And those weren't just like solopreneurs and small companies, right? It was a company with 700 people. It was, one of them was Gazprom Neft, which is like a huge corporation, right? And we won them because I danced in a video during the pandemic to show how leaders should talk about different stuff and pressure and mental health and those kind of things. I was feeling, the pressure, so I found a way to kind of express it, right, from that perspective. And and I think people should look at those simple things. Like, I look at on my website when they fill in the self-reported attribution form, right, and they tell me like, Nemanja jumps out of Pate on LinkedIn, or like, your perspective on go-to-market strategies is way different than I'm seeing in the industrial, and I want to try it out to see how it works, right? And I know that I've been writing about this stuff for like past 2 weeks. So, you actually see if what you're doing is giving you results
Yeah.
or no from that
And in
perspective.
larger deals with multiple stakeholders, another thing is you're drip feeding the language and the concepts and the frameworks and the proof points that are going to help your champions advocate and bring their peers, bring their boss into the conversation. I mean, that's when I think about who is the audience that I'm writing for, it's not just about prospecting. It's not just about new leads and new opportunities. In fact, that's not even top of my list. It's about accelerating existing deals. So, I'll be on a sales call. Well, first of all, I'll be on the first sales call with some folks, and it's great. And it happens a lot where at least one of them is like, "Oh, Steve, I'm really happy to meet you. I've been reading your stuff. In fact, I shared some of your posts with my team, and I put it in our Slack channel internally." And so right away, instant credibility, right? But then, you have that call, and you have let's say you have a really successful 45 minutes or 60 minutes with these people, and you really build rapport, and you really, like, good things happen. And then the call ends, and they go on to their next call and their next call and their next call, and they forget about you, right? So what's the typical sales motion? Bunch of follow-up emails. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Hey, and then just checking in. I want to stay in their mind and also continue to add value. So I always I say to them as the call's ending, like, "Hey, I'm sending you all connection." If I haven't already connected with them in advance of the call, which I often do, but if I haven't, then I'll say to them, I'm sending you a connection request right now, and make a little friendly joke, like, "Don't leave me hanging." I think I'm going to bring some interesting content and some value into your LinkedIn experience. So I hope you'll accept my connection request. And of course, almost 100% do when you do it in the right way at the right time. And then I'm drip feeding them, right? Every day I'm sharing more things that serves to remind them of me and my company and the conversations we had, but also gives them the ammunition that they need. Like, "Oh, I really need to bring in that other VP into this conversation, but he doesn't get it." Or, "Oh, I'm just going to take this thing that Steve wrote and I'm going to send it to my coworker." And it'll be like, "Hey, yeah, I think this is what we should be talking about. This is how we should be thinking differently." So I'm drip feeding people all the time. And I think that, again, back to those, everything comes back to mindsets, right? And when you approach social with a very short-term transactional lead generation mindset, you miss all of this stuff, all of it, because you're just going to say, "Well, I didn't get any fresh leads this week, so obviously I was wasting my time." If you think more holistically, it's incredible what you start to unlock.
Totally agree. And I would add something, exactly the thing that you said, help me not only get the new clients, but also enlarge the deals with the existing ones, right? Because I'm still sharing. I'm continuing to build up the connection. So I'm sharing, "Hey, we are doing this with this other client, or this might be useful," right? So they look at it, "Hey, is it something that might be useful for us as well? Maybe we can implement that as well." Those kind of things. And one thing I like to add to what you said, always think holistically in a different way, right? When you send a connection request, you add a nudge or something that is unique for you, right? That you are not going to be somebody who is just going to sell to them, but do things differently. If not, maybe it's better than you leave it out without the message. And I always say to the people, engage with your target audience, with your target customers, and
First,
when they
engage
engage,
first
yeah,
before the connection request.
then you send the connection
Yes.
request, right? Because they will accept it. We just had a chat, and you send me a connection request. Of course, I'm going to accept it,
Yeah.
right?
Or
From
you
that
engage with
perspective.
my content, you're leaving comments. I always say to people, don't lead with the connection request, lead to the connection request. But most salespeople have been taught to lead with the connection request. So it's like, "Okay, here's your territories, here's your company. Now go out and connect with all the decision makers in those companies." That's the wrong approach, because most of them just like, "Okay, you're a complete stranger. I don't know you. I don't know your company. and you have sales in your title, well, I know what's going to happen if I accept your connection request, and I'm not doing it. So you have a very low response rate. And they go, yeah, no, nobody accepted my connection request. Yeah, no kidding, they didn't, right? Don't lead with a connection request. That shouldn't be the first thing you do. Lead to it. Follow those people, visit their profiles, learn about them. Do they post on LinkedIn? If so, engage, like, celebrate, support, leave value adding comments, connect, or follow other people within their firm. Do things that get your name and your face and your voice on their radar a little bit in authentic ways. And then in time, when you send them a connection request and you're like, hey, Nemanja, I've been following you for the last few weeks and, really, really like the post you've been putting out there. And, in fact, I've shared a couple of them with my coworkers. I mean, would you be open to connecting? Because I'd appreciate it if you would be. Now, all of a sudden, your acceptance rate goes through the roof, right? Lead to the connection request. Don't lead with it. That's such a simple flip of a mindset that most people haven't figured out yet.
Yeah, and I'll add an additional detail because I got that with talking to people, how they go, how the process goes, right? I usually send them a welcome message after like at least 2 weeks of giving them the space to consume the content and engage, right? And when I send it, I just say, want to drop a line and say hi or something like that. But I learned that I need to add additional sentence, which says, if I can be of any help, everything is on my profile. Just that, like that one sentence changed the game. It took me 2 years to figure it out.
I like that.
But I did.
It's not an ask, right? It's a give. It's like you can come and learn everything, and I'm not immediately trying to book you on a call.
Exactly. And then if your profile is a landing page as it should be, you're taking them step by step. They go take a look at it, and then they end up on your website, right? From your profile to the company page, from the company page to the website, and then they come to. Additionally, what happens is I didn't have the second part, and I sent a welcome message, and one lady responded, when can we schedule a call? And I was like, we went to a call, and I asked her, you gotta tell me what happened. That was too fast, right? And she told me, we fired, or she left the company, their CMO, so they were on a lookout to hire somebody or an agency to help them out. And she was a head of product. She was in charge for that. So she was on the lookout. We connected. When I sent her a message, she checked out a couple of my latest posts, see who's reacting to that. Then she checked out my profile. She saw who are our mutual friends. Then she checked out the working experience. And that was enough for her to schedule a call.
I like that. That's really good. Instead, the typical motion is, this is what we do. Can we get on a call? And you've changed that pattern. You've broken that pattern. You've said everything you might want to know about me and my firm. It's on my profile. Like, it's like self-serve. Help yourself. I love it. That's it's such a low risk proposition for, I don't really want to take a call with this guy, but I'll go look at his profile. Sure. What do I have to lose? And now you're pulling them in. You're building that reputation. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And I mean, especially the part, people might say, because of course it's a template, it's a first message, and you connected with people, you just want to say hi, right? From that perspective. But they say, oh, it's template, or if it's automated, or if it's a bot. And I'm saying, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Right. Or if I'm not here and they respond like 5-10 hours later, and I said, I was there when I sent the message. Right. If you responded, I would get back to you right away. And they say, good, but it's a good like template. If it's template, it's a good one. Then you get into the conversation, what are you using for this? And then you go further from that. But tell me a little bit about involving the whole team into social selling, and especially into employer branding. Tell me a few things that are on top of mind when it comes to that part.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of companies go wrong with that in a few ways. One is they fail to connect the outcomes to what the individuals care about. They only talk about the company. So the way that plays out is, I call it the hey everyone trap, right? It's like, hey everyone, share our blog. Hey, everyone, promote our webinar. Hey, everyone, we just won an award. Go tell your networks. Hey, everyone. And it's very selfish from the perspective of marketing or HR or whoever's doing this. It doesn't respect the fact that your people, the individuals working in your firm, they may love their company, they may love their job, but they don't want to look like advertising robots. They don't want to look like Wi-Fi extenders for marketing or for HR. So, hey, everyone is a fundamentally selfish motion from the company. And most people don't bother. They just don't do it. And even if they do, it's not even good optics publicly, because now, like, 300 people all just shared the same thing on the same day, probably at the same time. Like, what's the point of that? So instead, flip that around. Instead of, hey, everyone, really think about, how can social presence help my sellers sell? How can it help marketers build, demand? How can it help team leaders attract top talent? How can it help executives do the things that they care about? Maybe one executive is focused on revenue retention, another executive is focused on building a partner network, and another executive is focused on fundraising. Well, how can we connect the outcomes that you already care about with social? How can social support that? And now we're fundamentally respecting you, and we're respecting the outcomes that are important to you and your role. And you're way more likely to participate in all of this, instead of just like, hey, everyone, share our blog. So that's point one. And point two, I'm going to come back to the senior leaders here. In a lot of firms, they completely miss the importance of senior leadership. No, it's not just buy-in. It starts with buy-in, but it goes a lot deeper than that. They want their people to get active on LinkedIn. They want their people to share content and involve in conversations and do all this stuff, but people are afraid. They're afraid that if they update their LinkedIn profile, someone's going to think they're looking for a new job. They're afraid that if they share a bunch of content, someone's going to say, oh, you're not an authorized spokesperson for the company. They're afraid that if they start engaging in comments and conversations, that they're going to be told, stop wasting time on social. We don't pay you that. We pay you to work. So what do you do in this case? Well, the only rational thing is you do nothing. And if the optics are that this is not important to senior leadership, I mean, either senior leadership actively, I'm going to think that either they actively disagree or that they just don't care one way or the other. I'm not going to do it. And then these program leaders wonder why adoption's low and engagement's low and all this stuff. You failed to get a clear message from senior leadership. And what you need from senior leadership is two things. You need active participation. And I always say you'll never get all your executives involved. Like, if you're talking a mid-size or a large firm, you'll never get them all involved. That's okay. You just need a couple of them. 2 or 3 of them will make all the difference in the world. They need to actively participate themselves, because if they're too important or they're too busy to do this stuff, what does it say about me if I do it? Am I not important? Am I not busy? So I need to see at least 2 or 3 of the senior leaders out there actively doing it. And that gives me confidence. But that's only half of it. The other half is I need what I call explicit permission. And that's where senior leaders on an ongoing basis make it clear to their people that social activity is respected, it's valued, it's encouraged. It's not forced. You can't force people to do this. You shouldn't try to force people, but you can educate them, you can inspire them, and you can give them explicit permission that, you can celebrate. You probably already have a couple people who are good on LinkedIn. Well, celebrate them. I worked with one company a little while ago. They had big, like 800 people, 800 salespeople in this firm. 2 of them were doing great stuff on LinkedIn. And they were always kind of like the black sheep of the family. They were like those weirdos who do stuff on LinkedIn all the time, and nobody quite knows whether that's okay or not. Well, they started to celebrate those 2. They brought them up on stage at their SKO. They gave them trophies as, the company's top social sellers. Now, all of a sudden, these people became role models for their coworkers. So, connect the social activity with the outcomes that your people value, and make sure you've got clear participation and clear explicit permission from the top. Do those two things and you'll completely change your whole output.
That's very well said. A lot of nuances in that part. And I like to say one thing, it's if you already know that LinkedIn is going to be your platform or whatever is social or whatever it is, make sure that you have the team in place that understands the value of them being more visible, because it's about them, right? If you and I as their bosses just say to them, you're going to be active on LinkedIn from tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? They may be gonna do it for like 2 weeks or 2 months, and then they're gonna
Right.
realize, am I doing it for myself or for this guy or for this company or
That's
whatever
such an
it
important
is.
point, Nemanja. There's another thing I neglected. Like, it's a journey. It's not an event. It's not like you flip a switch and now we're good at social selling. Now we're good at employee advocacy. Like, we did it. Yay. It doesn't work like it's a journey. It's an ongoing thing. And a whole lot of companies and a whole lot of individuals quit way too soon because they have unrealistic expectations. They think that right from the beginning, it's going to be big, it's going to be powerful, they're going to get all this extra demand. They're like, oh, it's going to be amazing. And then when it doesn't work out that way, they quit. It's a journey. You're building a new muscle. So you need to set those expectations correctly up front, and then you need to keep at it, keep working with people, because it's not going to happen overnight. And if you're the company that actually sticks with it, you can get way ahead of your competitors, because most of them are going to quit after 3 months or 6 months.
Exactly. I mean, in that direction, you need to set up yourself to watch the small things that are happening. I always say that, create, I don't know, you do have a company Slack, whatever it is, a group when self-reported attribution answers will appear when somebody sign up for a call or for demo or whatever it is. They might mention the names from your team. Then what I like to do is follow the SEO, search console, what are people typing? Because I found out, like, for the funky marketing, they started typing my name, Nemanja Živković LinkedIn. That's what they wrote.
Wow.
Right. So you know that you are heading somewhere and it's already happening.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, I would say, it's not like, do people know what to do or no? It's not tactics, it's not strategy, it's psychology thing, right?
Yeah.
Leaders need to take their hand and guide them until they are ready to do it on their own.
It's similar to the self-reported attribution. Another thing, if you're a really big company, a big sales team, and you're using Gong or using Chorus or something to record those calls, go in and search for mentions of LinkedIn. And what you start seeing is, oh yeah, I like, you find these, like, how did you come to us? How did you find us? What caused you to accept this call? And it's like, well, I've been reading Nemanja's posts on LinkedIn, or I've seen a bunch of your people on LinkedIn, or I love what you guys are doing on LinkedIn or on social media. You start finding that, and most salespeople in the context of a discovery call and everything else, they're not going to log that. It's going to be lost, but it exists in the call recording. Go find it. And then, like you said, start sharing that on Slack or other things. It's like, hey, we've got an opportunity over here, thanks to this person's LinkedIn activity, or thanks to our collective LinkedIn activity.
Exactly. I think in the last episode, Rob Freeman actually mentioned that they have a junior guy who wrote an article and shared it, and they closed a client, through that article. So they celebrated in a Slack, give him an award, something like that. And those are really good examples. You need to celebrate your wins as well, and name the people who, no matter what's their position, up or down, or they're the beginners, celebrate them if they contributed in a way to the results of the company. Steve, we can go like this for hours.
And let's do it. Okay, let's go 4 more hours, Nemanja.
I want to respect your time. So 2 questions for the end. First one is, what's next for you? If you look at the future, we are now close to the end of the year. And the second one is, where can people find you, connect with you? Maybe LinkedIn. What else? If you have something else, so please.
I'll take the second one first. LinkedIn, no surprise. LinkedIn is my place. I post almost every day. I'm very active there. I connect with a lot of people. I learn a lot and I share a lot. And so I would be very receptive to whether people want to send a connection request or they want to follow, whatever works for you. I'll do my very best to be interesting and valuable to you. So LinkedIn. The first one, what's next? Honestly, I think more of the same. My role at Seismic is really as our subject matter expert around social selling and employee advocacy. And that really takes there's three slices to that pie. One is evangelism and marketing and LinkedIn participation, podcasting. I co-host Seismic's own podcast called Go to Market Magic. I hope folks will check that out. So there's another place you can find me, Go to Market Magic podcast and YouTube channel. And I appear on other folks' podcasts like yours. And I speak at conferences and so forth and basically advocate for better approaches to social selling and employee advocacy, which leads to the sales component that Seismic sells a tool called Seismic Live Social, which is one part of our broader enablement suite that helps companies, especially mid-size. It's not really built for solopreneurs or very small companies. It's really sort of mid-size companies and above, really helps them get great on social. So I actively sell those tools. And that leads to the third thing I do, which is more of a customer success role where I work with our companies, our customers. I help them launch these programs. I help them scale them. I help them fix them if they get broken, and really work with them to thrive. Because no tool, including our own, in and of itself is enough. It takes the right technology together with the right mindsets and skill sets and approaches and measurements. So next year, more of the same, more advocating, more selling, more supporting our customers, and helping more companies and more individuals get really good at this stuff.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I mean, what you said is actually a great source for the great content, right? Working with customers and getting the insights from day-to-day work with them, and add to that like sales calls, discovery calls, whatever it is.
These three things, sales, marketing, and customer success, they come together so beautifully. Yes, I learn so much from working with our customers that helps me sell better and also helps me market better. And I learn so much from the sales process. I learn what questions I get asked, what misconceptions people have, what objections they have. What I learn from wins and I learn from losses, and that helps me support customers better and market better. Like these things all come together. I kind of jokingly say that I'm a go-to-market Swiss Army knife, right? I've got multiple prongs. It all comes down to one core outcome for the company, but by being involved in sales and marketing and customer success, I think the clock speed of my own learning is massively accelerated. I wish more people had the opportunity to be in roles like that. I mean, most people are only sales, or they're only marketing, or they're only customer success. I consider myself very fortunate to be in all three of them, and it's great for me in my own career, but it's also great for the company and it's great for our customers.
Exactly. I would just agree. And guys, if you don't know, Steve doesn't have Swiss Army knife. Go to Marcus Swiss Army knife on his profile. So if it sounds good, I would recommend you use it until you can. Steve, thanks a lot for being here with me and the audience, for sharing the things. You definitely hyped me up before the event that we have tonight. So thank you for that as well. And also, guys, I would recommend you go back to the beginning of the episode, listen, stop on specific parts that gets your attention. See if you understand everything. If not, reach out to Steve, ask questions if you have about it. I'm sure he's happy to respond, to engage. I'm here as well. And as I always say, if you've not subscribed to the podcast, subscribe. I ask only once during the podcast. So do it if you like it. Share it with somebody who might find use of it. And as we always say at the end, first, Steve, thanks a lot. Guys, keep it funky. That's the only thing that's important for the end of the podcast.
Thank you, Nemin. Yeah, it was a real pleasure speaking with you today.
Likewise.